Have you ever missed a deadline, made a mistake, or received criticism at work, only to feel like the world is crashing down around you? That spiraling sensation where your thoughts take over, imagining worst-case scenarios. This is what psychologists call catastrophic thinking. Let's begin by understanding catastrophic thinking, what it is, how it develops, and why it feels so overwhelming. By identifying its patterns and recognizing its roots, we can start to address its impact. 1. Definition of catastrophic thinking. Catastrophic thinking is the habit of imagining the worst possible outcome in any situation, often far removed from reality. For example, a delayed email reply from a client might spiral into thoughts like, "I've lost the deal," or "My boss will be furious." It's not the event itself that causes anxiety, but the story we create about what it could lead to. 2. The emotional domino effect. Catastrophic thinking sets off an emotional chain reaction. One negative thought leads to another, escalating your worry. This creates a cycle where the mind becomes consumed by fear of the future, leaving little space for calm or rationality. 3. Why it feels so real. Our brains are wired for survival, and catastrophic thinking is often a defense mechanism. The mind exaggerates potential threats as a way to prepare for danger. While this instinct may have protected our ancestors from predators, in modern life, it leads us to overreact to non-threatening situations, like a critical email or a tough conversation. Common triggers of catastrophic thinking. Work-related stressors, like tight deadlines, difficult colleagues, or unclear expectations, often trigger catastrophic thinking. Other common triggers include perfectionism, fear of failure, and past experiences where something truly did go wrong. 5. The disconnect from reality. One of the key characteristics of catastrophic thinking is its disconnect from the present moment. It focuses on hypothetical future outcomes, often without considering realistic probabilities. For example, a missed deadline doesn't mean your career is over, but your mind may convince you otherwise. 6. Its universality. Catastrophic thinking is a universal human experience. We all face moments when our minds spiral into what-if scenarios. Even the Buddha observed this tendency, saying, "The mind is difficult to control, swift, and wanders wherever it pleases." Dhammapada. Understanding that this is a natural part of being human is the first step toward managing it. 7. How it feeds itself. Catastrophic thinking thrives on repetition. The more you rehearse worst-case scenarios, the stronger they feel. This is why a small mistake can grow into a full-blown disaster in your mind. It's the habit of replaying and reinforcing negative possibilities. 8. Why awareness is crucial. The first step in overcoming catastrophic thinking is awareness. By recognizing the signs, escalating worries, racing thoughts, or feeling frozen by fear, you can start to break the cycle. As the Buddha taught, your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own unguarded thoughts. Dhammapada awareness allows you to guard your mind against this unnecessary suffering. Catastrophic thinking is a habit, not a fact. It's the mind playing tricks, magnifying fears and diminishing reality. But the good news is, once you understand how it works, you can begin to take control and redirect your thoughts toward clarity and resilience. In Buddhism, the mind is considered both the source of our suffering and the pathway to liberation. The Buddha once said in the Dhammapada, "All experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, made by mind." This profound teaching reminds us that our perception, not the actual events, creates much of the suffering we experience. Catastrophic thinking thrives because of how our mind interprets and reacts to challenges, often magnifying them beyond reality. 1. The root causes: attachment, aversion, and ignorance. Buddhist teachings explain that our mental struggles are fueled by 3 poisons, or kleshas: attachment, aversion, and ignorance. Let's unpack how these contribute to catastrophic thinking. A. Attachment to expectations. We often cling to the belief that everything must go perfectly. I must be successful, or this report needs to be flawless. When reality doesn't align with our expectations, we feel unbalanced. The Buddha reminds us in the Sutta Nipata, whatever is subject to arising is subject to cessation. Life is constantly changing. Projects will fail, deadlines will be missed, and criticism will happen. Recognizing impermanence allows us to loosen our grip on these expectations and accept the ebb and flow of life without panic. B. Aversion to failure. Failure is a natural part of life, yet we fear it deeply. This aversion often leads us to resist challenges or dwell on setbacks. In Buddhist thought, suffering, or dukkha, is not caused by failure itself, but by our inability to accept it. The Buddha taught in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, there is suffering, there is a cause of suffering, and there is a path to its cessation. When we avoid or fight against failure, we only increase our suffering. But by embracing discomfort as part of growth, we take the first step toward freedom. C. Ignorance of reality. Ignorance, or avidya, clouds our understanding of reality. When we catastrophize, we create exaggerated scenarios that rarely align with the truth. For example, a small mistake at work can trigger thoughts like, "This will ruin my reputation. I'll never recover from this." But most of these thoughts are illusions. The Buddha encourages us to cultivate wisdom through mindfulness and insight, seeing things as they truly are, rather than as we imagine them to be. The power of perspective, shifting from reaction to observation. The Buddha compared the mind to a chariot. If the mind is untamed, it runs wild, pulling us into chaos. But if it's trained, it becomes a powerful tool for navigating life's challenges. He said, "A disciplined mind leads to happiness, while an undisciplined mind leads to suffering." Dhammapada. When we pause and observe our thoughts, we create a gap between the stimulus and our reaction. This gap is where transformation happens. Instead of reacting emotionally to setbacks, we can choose a calm and mindful response. 3. The mirror of vipassana. Seeing clearly. The practice of vipassana, insight meditation, teaches us to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment. Imagine shining a light in a dark room. Suddenly, you can see the clutter clearly for what it is. Similarly, when you observe your catastrophic thoughts, you realize they are just passing clouds in the sky, not permanent storms. The Buddha taught, like a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame. Dhammapada. By practicing vipassana, you can see criticism or setbacks not as personal failures, but as temporary events that don't define you. 4. Building resilience through calm and insight. Combining samatha, calm, and vipassana, insight, we develop resilience, the ability to remain steady in the face of life's inevitable ups and downs. Samatha teaches us to calm our minds, reducing the noise of catastrophic thoughts. Vipassana helps us understand that these thoughts are not truths, but simply fleeting mental events. Together, they create a foundation of clarity and strength. In Buddhism, the mind is not an enemy to be controlled, but a tool to be understood. When we stop identifying with our catastrophic thoughts and start observing them with clarity and compassion, we unlock the power to face challenges with courage, calm, and wisdom. Catastrophic thinking doesn't just exist in our minds. It impacts every aspect of our professional and personal lives. Here are 10 ways it can manifest and hold us back, especially in the workplace. 1. Procrastination due to fear of failure. When you imagine the worst possible outcome of a task, you may feel paralyzed and avoid starting altogether. This procrastination often stems from fear of making a mistake, being judged, or not meeting expectations. 2. Heightened stress levels. Catastrophic thinking triggers the fight-or-flight response, even in non-threatening situations. Emails, meetings, or deadlines can feel like insurmountable threats, keeping you in a constant state of stress. 3. Reduced decision-making ability. When your mind is consumed by worst-case scenarios, you struggle to make clear, confident decisions. Instead of focusing on practical solutions, you become preoccupied with what could go wrong, leading to indecision or poor choices. 4. Strained workplace relationships. Overthinking and imagining negative outcomes in conversations can lead to misunderstandings or defensiveness. For example, you might misinterpret a neutral comment from a colleague as criticism or assume you're being excluded from decisions. 5. Perfectionism and burnout. Catastrophic thinking often fuels perfectionism, the belief that anything less than perfect will result in disaster. This mindset leads to overworking, micromanaging, and eventually, burnout. 6. Loss of perspective. Minor setbacks, such as a missed deadline or a critique from your manager, can feel like career-ending disasters when seen through a catastrophic lens. You lose the ability to contextualize challenges, making small problems appear monumental. 7. Erosion of confidence. Repeated catastrophic thoughts can create a negative self-narrative. I'm not capable, I'm not good enough, or I'll never succeed. Over time, this inner dialogue erodes your confidence and self-esteem. 8. Inability to take risks. Professionals who engage in catastrophic thinking often avoid opportunities that involve uncertainty. Whether it's declining to take on a leadership role or avoiding a new project, this fear of failure limits your growth and potential. 9. Poor performance under pressure. Catastrophic thinking increases self-doubt during high-stakes situations, such as presentations or interviews. Instead of focusing on preparation or the task at hand, your mind is consumed by imagined failures, reducing your performance. 10. Negative impact on mental and physical health. Chronic catastrophic thinking can lead to anxiety, depression, and even physical symptoms such as headaches, fatigue, or insomnia. The ongoing mental strain of worst-case scenarios takes a toll on your overall well-being. As professionals, our ability to think clearly and stay composed is essential. But catastrophic thinking undermines this ability, creating unnecessary stress, limiting opportunities, and eroding self-belief. Recognizing these effects is the first step toward breaking free from their hold. Now that we've explored the roots of catastrophic thinking and the Buddhist perspective, let's look at 10 practical methods you can apply to regain clarity and strengthen your resilience. 1. Start a daily mindfulness practice. Set aside 10 minutes each day to sit quietly and focus on your breath. Whenever catastrophic thoughts arise, gently return your attention to the present moment. The Buddha said, "As irrigators lead water to fields, as archers aim arrows, as carpenters carve wood, the wise shape their minds." Dhammapada. This daily practice trains your mind to avoid being swept away by negative thinking. 2. Identify and reframe your thoughts. Write down a specific catastrophic thought, like, "I'll fail this project and lose my job." Then ask yourself, what evidence supports this? What's the most likely outcome? How would I handle it if the worst happened? By reframing the thought, you reduce its emotional intensity and see it more objectively. 3. Anchor yourself in the present moment. When you catch yourself spiraling, focus on something tangible around you. Feel the ground under your feet. Notice your breath, or listen to the sounds in your environment. The Buddha taught, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." Majjhima Nikaya. This simple shift can interrupt catastrophic thinking and ground you in reality. 4. Embrace the principle of impermanence. Remind yourself that no situation, no matter how difficult, is permanent. The Buddhist teaching of Anicca emphasizes that everything is subject to change. The Buddha said, "Whatever is subject to arising is subject to cessation." Repeat this teaching to yourself when challenges feel overwhelming. This, too, shall pass. 5. Label your emotions and thoughts. When you notice a wave of catastrophic thinking, pause and label it. This is fear. This is self-doubt. Or this is an assumption. By naming it, you separate yourself from the emotion, giving you space to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. 6. Practice self-compassion. When you feel you've made a mistake or fallen short, speak to yourself with kindness. Remind yourself that imperfection is part of being human. The Buddha said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." Dhammapada replace self-criticism with affirming thoughts like, "I'm doing my best, and that's enough for today." 7. Create a pause before reacting. When something triggers catastrophic thinking, like a critical email or a tough conversation, pause before reacting. Take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself, "Am I seeing this situation clearly?" The Buddha advised, "Speak or act with a calm, bright heart, and happiness follows you." Dhammapada. This moment of pause can prevent a small stressor from spiraling into a larger worry. 8. Shift focus to gratitude. When negative thoughts arise, counter them by listing 3 things you're grateful for. It could be something small, like a supportive colleague or a peaceful lunch break. Gratitude helps shift your perspective from what's wrong to what's right, diminishing the power of catastrophic thinking. 9. Break the problem into steps. Instead of being overwhelmed by a big issue, break it into smaller, manageable tasks. Focus on completing just one step at a time. As the Buddha taught, little by little, a person becomes good as a pot is filled with water drop by drop. Dhammapada. This method reduces the feeling of being overwhelmed and builds confidence with each small success. 10. Reflect on past resilience. Think about a time when you overcame a significant challenge. What strengths or resources did you use? Remind yourself that you've handled difficulties before and can do so again. The Buddha said, "Even death is not to be feared by one who has lived wisely." Sutta Nipata. This reflection builds trust in your ability to navigate life's uncertainties. Voiceover conclusion. By applying these 10 methods, You can transform your response to challenges and cultivate a mind that is calm, clear, and resilient. Remember, as the Buddha taught, the mind creates our suffering, but the mind can also create our peace. The key lies in practice, little by little, step by step. Take these teachings into your life and see how they can help you find clarity and strength amidst uncertainty.